Good afternoon and welcome to Inside the FLX. I'm Josh Durso, and as always, we are coming to you from the FingerLakes1.com studios in downtown Seneca Falls. We have two local public servants on the show today. They're joining me to discuss some important issues impacting the entire region. Brad Jones, former mayor of Seneca Falls, and Ken Kammerer, the current 4th Ward Councilman in the city of Geneva, are both here to talk politics, landfilling, and much more. Thank you both for coming on today.
Thank you, Josh. Good afternoon.
So before we get into any of the nitty-gritty here, tell us a little bit about yourselves. Obviously, one of you is more well-known in the Seneca County area than the other. But start with you, Brad. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, currently I'm a resident and citizen of Seneca Falls, New York. My name's Brad Jones. My wife, Debbie. We have two growing sons. We live on 11 Courtney Drive. Past experiences, I've been the village mayor here in Seneca Falls back from 1996 to 2000. Retired from ITT Goulds Pumps after 34 years. And currently involved on educating the public on some of the key issues that are within our county and outside of our county.
Ken, how about you?
I'm a city councilor. I've lived in the city of Geneva for, I don't know the exact number of years, but it's more than 25. I graduated from Hobart and William Smith Colleges a long time ago in '72. I've gotten involved. Well, let's put it this way: my interest in politics is in the sense that I've been a chronic subscriber to the Finger Lakes Times probably since I graduated from Hobart and William Smith. So I follow what's going on in the region and the area, and it eventually led me to running for city council 2 cycles ago. So I'm a councilor. I'm starting my 5th year at city council. I represent the 4th Ward of the city of Geneva.
Okay, so obviously you guys are here for a pretty specific reason. You're here to talk about landfilling and some of the debate around Seneca Meadows and some other issues, honing in on that. Brad, you've pointed out 2 specific issues that have really spurred you to get involved on this issue. The 2023 date,
Yes.
And also the $3.3 billion New York City contract. If you could just talk to us a little bit about that, why that spurred your involvement.
Well, it spurred my involvement because the $3.3 billion proposed contract to bring trash from New York City for the next 20 years, no one, and I stress no one, whether it was at the state, county, or town level, was even aware of it. So I've always said if it smells like a skunk, it most likely is a skunk. Landfill expansion. I think everybody's aware, not just here in Seneca Falls or Waterloo, but anywhere in Seneca County, the smell. I tell everybody the best news we've ever had is the smell. The worst news we have to share is the smell's here forever unless we do something. And that's why I, along with a group of individuals, are working with the new town board, along with the county board, on saying enough is enough. We no longer want to be the garbage pail for outside counties, outside states. We've done our fair share. This goes back 3, 4, 5 decades. So the line in the sand, so to speak, is the year 2023. And with that said, we, residents and citizens, don't want the landfill to get any expansion nor any new landfills here in Seneca County. And 2023 is not that far away.
Yeah. So obviously this is an issue for more than just, this is not just a Seneca County issue. Ken, why is this something that you have been very passionate about? Obviously, Ontario County has a landfill issue of its own. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Well, at some point in the early 2000s, I'd say around 2004, if I had to pick a date, Ontario County converted their county landfill to one that would accept outside municipal solid waste. And they engaged a company called Casella Waste Systems to run it. And the proposition was, let us take lots of garbage instead of just the county garbage, and we'll make you a lot of money. And so it went from probably taking maybe 100,000 or plus tons a year to 3,000 a day. And I don't know what that adds up to, but it's a lot. And certainly the county's making a lot of money on it. And so that created, and to be honest, it wasn't highly publicized in the sense that, everybody knew what was happening. The board of the Ontario County Board of Supervisors basically felt they were solving a problem with a landfill that was costing them the taxpayers' money. So they opted for this. So that conditions, or at least set my my antenna, or turned my antenna on to those kinds of issues. And a landfill that's only 7 or 8 miles from Geneva on the other side means that we're sort of in the crosshairs in Geneva. And we have to take a regional perspective about this. We're connected by this lake, and the Finger Lakes is connected by our wine and tourism business. We're all in that business, and it's been growing and has become very successful. So that's my interest. I'd like to protect and enhance that aspect of our life here, not the money that comes from landfills.
Yeah, I would say that's been, covering a couple weeks ago, we were at the walk along the tracks that Brad and some other people put together in relatively short order. And that was sort of one of the common theme, one of the common points that people were making was that it isn't just a Seneca Falls or Waterloo or Geneva or whatever problem, it's a regional problem. And there were people from the south end of Seneca Lake at that walk. Now, talk to us a little bit about what that was like, Brad, putting that together, and then what it felt like sort of seeing the kind of turnout that happened.
It was something that I never imagined. I thought maybe 20, 25 individuals. We probably had 250, maybe 300 protesters. And I think more than anything, it was a groundswell. And it wasn't just here in Seneca County. It wasn't just in Waterloo and Seneca Falls. Ken brings up a good point. The elephant in the room is regional. Since taking that protest walk just 2 weeks ago, we've been in contact with friends in Auburn. We can only imagine, if the trash train proposal is approved, that the trains are going to come from the east and the trash is going to come from the west. So this is much more than Seneca County. This is regional. It's not like a trash train's going to leave at 7 in the morning out of New York City and arrive here after hours and then return. You're going to have terminals all the way along the route from New York City to Seneca Falls. One could imagine possibly 2 or 3 days worth of garbage on cars in Auburn.
Yeah.
Now that's, I'm guessing, but one could imagine. One could imagine maybe a staging area someplace in Geneva or Watkins Glen. But that's why I think it's becoming regional. But more than anything, what I saw from that groundswell was families and children. It wasn't just the good old guys.
Yeah.
We made some errors in our generation. Yes, we accepted the cash and we allowed the mountains to grow to what they are today. But our kids and our families are saying enough is enough.
No, can I just jump in for a minute?
Sure.
One of the things that's very, we hear both the railroad and SMI talk about the efficiency of hauling garbage by trains. The reason it is very dangerous to do this for us is that it creates an incentive to stay in operation way past 2023. A garbage train. There's New York City garbage is going by train right now to a landfill in Kentucky, which is in the process of closing. That's 730 miles away. New York City's 260 miles from us. So we have to be really concerned that once the train operation is in play, that there's nothing to stop SMI from expanding its market or, in the present term, And they say they're not going to take more than their 6,000 a day, but they could then stack up markets for the long term, way past 2023.
And that's a great segue to my next question, which is just what do you think the impact would be on Seneca County, Ontario County, the Finger Lakes as a whole, if an extension of any kind was granted in that way?
Well, I think we're seeing some of that already today. You're seeing a number of homes along the tracks here in Seneca Falls with for sale signs. One could imagine if we get 12 cars a day, 24, 36 trash cars going through our community, those for sale signs are going to expand out the Cuga Street, Fall Street, south side of the river, maybe even down on the lakes. So that we're seeing today. You've been at some of the recent town board meetings. They're talking about reassessments. I think the citizens are saying, you bring trash trains through our community, the value of our homes are going down. And that's why I think this new town board is listening. So those are immediate concerns. The other thing is, what about corporations like ITT Goulds Pumps? Has anybody talked to their executives on whether they want trash trains going through their Fall Street campus daily? Has anybody talked to the new owners of Del Lago, the casino? Recently, it seems like the smell is stronger out toward the thruway than sometimes here in our town. Have they talked to companies like Bonadent? We know where the county board sits, but I think it's time for whether it's the IDA or our state legislators to start reaching out and say, hey, it's not just these people that are talking at the town board meeting that are getting 3 minutes per month. What about some of these companies that may say enough is enough? We're trying to retain these companies and grow our future. We don't want to lose any more than we've lost already.
So you touched on one thing that I thought was pretty interesting a little earlier, Auburn. They seemingly would be just as impacted. If Geneva's impacted, Auburn is equally impacted. What have you guys heard from officials or even residents? Like what has sort of been the pulse that you guys have been able to capture so far in Auburn?
Well, it's no secret. Mike Smith, president of Finger Lakes Rail, he and I are personal friends. We agree to disagree on this particular issue, but it was he himself that shared with me that major upgrades are going on, not just on the Geneva portion of the tracks, but also in Auburn. So when I hear that right from the horse's mouth, I say to myself, well, I could imagine there has to be staging. Once again, my opinion. But it's not like you're going to have trash coming up from New York City in the morning. You're going to have trash probably staged in Cortland. You're going to have probably trash staged in Syracuse. It may be day 5 trash. Syracuse may be day 4. And maybe Auburn and Geneva are day 2, 3, and 4 or 5. So that's why I say this is regional. Auburn has reached out to some of our officials because they want to get in on the conversation. And hopefully they're reaching out to our state legislators because they need to hear from just more than people in Seneca Falls or our county.
So, Ken, what are your thoughts on the Seneca County IDA extending funding to the Finger Lakes Rail for another 10 years? If that is something, what could... obviously, the two are closely linked, Seneca Meadows and Finger Lakes Rail. Why is it important to not just focus on Seneca Meadows and also be looking at Finger Lakes Rail as well?
Well, I think there's the issue, at least in this agreement, to extend for 10 years. What it is it provides a mechanism for a pilot, a payment in lieu of taxes. The Finger Lakes Railway would get relief on the rental of the rights-of-way. It would get some administrative fees, and then it would pay a percentage of the revenue that it makes off of, its business. And that would be less than, let's say, the property taxes that would be levied if they had to pay property taxes on these rights-of-way.
Yeah.
So the deal is, though, I think that what we have, if the Seneca County IDA votes for extending this privilege without blocking the carriage of municipal solid waste, then you have a major disconnect between what the wishes are of the public and the voters, and the 14-0 vote by Seneca County Board of Supervisors. And this is an arm; they serve at the pleasure of the supervisors. You have a major disconnect, and it's really, in a way, it's flying in the face of what is public interest. And one of the things I was disappointed in hearing from Steve Fisk, he's a member of the Finger Lakes Railway on your program last week, was he expressed the fact that it's not us. We have a quote-unquote common carrier obligation to carry freight for whoever asks us to. And the problem is that I've seen some of the documents, at least on the Ontario County side, the Ontario County IDA, and there are, in the documents that have been signed in the past, there are provisions for environmental protection that are stipulations, and one of them is no shipment of hazardous waste through our communities. Finger Lakes Railway willingly signed that. So they don't. They are renting these rights of way. They are not owners of it. So their landlords, the IDAs, have a right to ask no carriage of New York City garbage or anyone else's through our communities. That is a perfectly legitimate request. It's the same as saying we don't want any we don't want any hazardous waste.
Yes.
So I think it's important that the IDA votes, adds those provisions that bar the transport of solid waste.
So, Brad, one of the things that I heard floated at, I want to say it was the last meeting, was a proposal to, and it was in no way an official, it was one of the speakers mentioned it, creating a law or a provision of a law to prevent expansion or new landfills. Would that necessarily close off any potential for anything happening in the future, or would that is that a more blunt, less effective way to handle it?
From the research that I've done and other people, it sounds like, once again, the line in the sand is the year 2023. You may have heard the host agreement here with the town of Seneca Falls, something similar in the town of Waterloo. We've heard dates 2017, we've heard dates 2025, but let's just say 2023. To date, the new town board has put a stop work order in on the rail siding. To date, the new town board is saying they're listening, their residents and their constituents. I can only hope in the very near future that this town board, along with the county board, saying it's over in 2023. By taking that action today, it sends a message to so many parties. One, it sends a message to our legislators in Albany. It sends a very strong message to the DEC. And at the end of the day, Albany and DEC will have a major, major say on whether these trains come or go. But more importantly, imagine the town board saying 2023, no expansion in the form of a law. 2023, no new landfills in Seneca Falls, Waterloo, nor Seneca County, and maybe that law comes from the Seneca County Board of Supervisors. There's a ripple effect. I'm thinking 2023 may turn into be 2022 or 2021, because just imagine if the ink is on the paper. Seneca Metals, their parent organization, Progressive Waste, not even based here in New York State, they may say, wow, we've only got 5 or 6 more years in Seneca County. Let's not spend any more capital or upgrades on that facility. The people that are trying to arrange this 20-year contract from New York City may say, whew, boy, they're not only slowing the train down, they don't want the train. In 6 years, they don't even have a landfill. So maybe this 20-year agreement that looks good today turned into a 3 or 4 year agreement, maybe they're going to say, well, let's reroute this train to, I don't know, Messina, Poughkeepsie, whatever.
Yeah.
The other thing, too, it allows employees, nobody wants to be at the facility to turn the lights off. I know it from other corporations or any businesses that have closed down. They usually close down sooner than later. So once again, the winner could be our families, the winner could be our children, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. Up to now, it's been all about money. Tomorrow, it's starting to be about quality of life, what we're breathing, and we haven't even touched on another subject, and maybe we can before the end of the show, is leachate. I'm just as concerned of what's going into our waterways than I am just in our air.
So you create one of the common conversation pieces within this debate is the property tax debate. You have been working on, and I would assume you've been working with a couple other people at least, on a financial plan to relieve any burden that might be on Seneca Falls residents. Could you give us, what can you tell us about that plan, or how it came together, or where you stand with it?
Well, I had mentioned at the last town board meeting we'd have something in the next 30 to 60 days. And when I say we, it's part of the Citizens Advisory Group that Greg Lazaro appointed to kind of look at that as being one of the items. For your listeners and viewers today, Seneca Metals currently gives about $2.5 million a year to the town of Seneca Falls as part of the host agreement, and gives about $500,000 to the town of Waterloo. Now here you got somebody like myself saying, well, the landfill is going to close, and you've got some people saying, well, I really don't want our taxes to go up. So what's the answer? The proposal, and it's kind of at the 10,000 foot level right now, Josh, but if our listeners and viewers could imagine skimming some of the sales tax revenue, there's much discussion at the county level right now. Currently, and thank goodness for the outlet mall, thank goodness for the businesses that exist in Seneca County, $23 million of a $74 million county budget actually comes in via sales tax revenue. That's up $10 million from less than 10 years ago. So, as a citizen, as a resident, with the good news, Lago coming on board, and the good news that the outlet mall is here to stay, that we could imagine that $23 million, maybe $24 million next year. It may be $25 million.
Yep.
Some assumptions.
Yeah.
But working with the county, because once again, the county's so involved in this regional issues, wouldn't it be great to skim some of that sales tax revenue to make the town of Waterloo whole, skim some of that sales tax to make the town of Seneca Falls whole, and at the same time, some of the new sales tax revenue, or some of the money that Del Lago, the casino, has appropriated for not just the town of Tyre, but Seneca County as a whole, skim some of that. And I'm not just saying for the town of Seneca Falls and the town of Waterloo. There are 10 towns in Seneca County. And this is, once again, regional. There's some discussions with schools wanting to participate. But I think if we put it out there on a piece of paper and present it not just to the county board, but also individual town boards, and that's what our plan is. We want to have forums out there because it's not just skimming the money from the county, but it's also town of Seneca Falls, town of Waterloo, tightening your belt on maybe where you're spending some things you don't have to. So it's a combination. Two groups working together, but at the end of the day, there won't be a tax increase. And that's what our goal is, and we're going to be sharing the particulars probably sometime before now and May 1st.
Now, in Ontario County, has that been a common concern amongst the people who are coming out to meetings and the constituents that you're talking to? Property tax, is that one of the major concerns people have with booting a landfill out?
Well, I'm not as up on the property tax issue in terms of, it's certainly helping with Ontario county tax. I don't believe that we're paying any kind of an income tax at all at the county level to the county because of the landfill dollars that are helping with the budget. And I think it's $2 million plus,
Yeah.
A year. But one of the things about our landfill that's different than this one is it's publicly owned. It's owned by the county. And since about 3 or 4 years ago, supervisors, especially Geneva ones, but I think, and in particular Mark Venuti, who's on their environmental planning committee, is arguing for a closure date. And technically the cell that's being built now, the new cell will last 10 years, and that'll bring us to 2028, something like that. And so at some point, what he wants the county to do is, like Brad's talking about for Seneca, is to initiate a planning process that softens the impact of not collecting that, that sales tax, or not collecting that revenue from landfill operations.
Now, quickly before we get out here, is there something in the works that could potentially look like the walk that took place here in Seneca Falls in Ontario County? Have you heard anything from the residents in Ontario County?
Well, I know I'm not involved in the planning of the actual walk, but I've heard and I've talked to some of the people who want to do it, and they'd like to do something on Earth Day, and they'd like to hold it in Geneva. They'd like to have it be for all of our concerns. And doing it on Earth Day, we could be talking about both landfills, and we could also be talking about our concerns about the Crestwood midstream gas storage project at the end of Seneca Lake, which we're very concerned about.
So what has both of your takeaways been to this point on the job that Greg Lazaro, Supervisor Seneca Falls, has done thus far this year? He kind of walked into a little bit of a mess, it would seem, at least from the public outcry standpoint. How do you think he's sort of navigated the ship?
Well, I use the word leadership and accountability, and he's doing both. And I just don't want to say Greg alone. You have 2 new board members, actually 1 new, Vic Peretta, as well as a fellow that's served our community in many ways, Dave DeLaylis. They're listening. They're listening to the citizen. Yeah. And so far, so good. Yeah. There's more work to be done, and maybe it's to finally put a date on the paper that it's officially over. But they're listening to children, they're listening to families. So I feel real good. It's not the same old game of politics that we've all lived and died by for years, if not decades.
Democracy's come back to Seneca Falls.
And it's teamwork, right? Like we talked a little bit before we came on. You guys were saying that it's not just my sandbox or your sandbox. It's the whole region has one sandbox that everyone is
We're
working
all
in.
responsible.
Well, to your point, asking about the Earth Day protest march, possibly in the city of Geneva, give us a call. We'll have 250 people there to help you out as the city of Geneva and Ontario County helped us out. We'll be there.
We appreciate it. Thank you very much.
So I want to thank you guys for coming on today. It's really awesome having you on. I'm sure we'll be having you on again as this issue continues to pick up steam and evolve by the day, it seems.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Josh.
Well, that's going to do it for us today. I'd like to thank Brad and Ken for coming on and wish them the best of luck with their continued efforts in Seneca Falls and Geneva. Remember, Inside the FLX airs Sundays at 7 p.m. on Time Warner Cable Channel 12. And as always, the latest news updates and podcasts are just a click or a touch away with the Finger Lakes One app, available on Apple and Android devices. For Brad Jones and Ken Camera, I'm Josh Durso, reminding you to join us next week on another episode of Inside the FLX.